Welcome to the Dirty North Archery Podcast with your hosts, Brandon and Caleb Hobbs,
where archery is in our DNA.
Hey everybody, it's Brandon here. I'm rolling solo today. I just want to do a quick podcast here today about some tuning stuff. It's kind of that time of year where everybody's knocking the dust off, getting ready for spring 3D season or spring turkey, whatever it is, and starting to retune their setups for the summer shooting season. So Caleb just did a blog post on our website at dirtynortharchery.com about some of that stuff. You guys go check that out, give it a read. But I wanted to talk about today some of the overlooked aspects of tuning, and then some of the effects you can have on a tune with changes that you make while you're sighting in your bow, while you're trying to get good arrow flight and that kind of stuff. A lot of stuff that people overlook but really needs to be taken care of and addressed whenever you're tuning your bow. So I think the first thing, one of the most important things people need to remember is that your shop technician, whoever's working on your bow, cannot do the final tune for you. A lot of people will send their bow in, have somebody work on it, whatever it is, and expect it to be shooting absolutely perfect for them when they put their hands on it. Well, we've discussed in podcasts before about how everybody's different and everybody grips a bow different. Everybody has different draw length, different anchor points, different facial features, different stance, you name it, pulls through differently, doesn't pull through, shoots a different style release. I mean, all these things affect your final tune. So one of the big things is that, so with that being said, a tech can have it tuned, money out the door. If I send something that's spot on, well, that doesn't mean it's going to shoot perfect bullet holes or perfect bear shafts or broadheads for you as the end user, just because it does for me. Now, if you come in and we're working together, or if you're working with your tech and they take your bow and shoot, a perfect bullet hole, or they shoot a bear shaft and say, there, your bow's tuned, and hand it to you, but you can't duplicate it, and you're standing there right next to them, well, then that bow's not tuned. It doesn't matter what that tech says or does, because let's face it, you can manipulate your grip to change point of impact. I can put on a different arrow there than what you're shooting, spined out differently to get it to tune properly. But you need to remember that you got to fix it for yourself. And hopefully your shop tech, the person you're working with, if you're working with us, for sure we're going to get it set to you, realizes that, and they're going to listen to you and tune the bow to you. So, like I mentioned, some of the things we're going to look for when we're tuning a bow that can actually pretty dramatically affect your tune and arrow flight that people usually overlook. So first I want to talk about draw length. Now, your draw length is your draw length. If it doesn't matter how long your D-loop is, it doesn't matter necessarily your anchor point and stuff, but your draw length should be fit to you with proper stance draw length. Now, how does that affect tuning? And this gets looked past a lot, is if your draw length is too long, and you're a right-handed shooter, to be opposite for left, draw length is too long, what that's going to do, it's going to cause your elbow to, instead of driving straight back on your trigger hand, your elbow is going to start rotating back around your head, which is, naturally your body can only make your shoulder rotate that way, and once it gets so far. And in rotating back, even without you knowing it, even if it's just a 1/4 inch too long, with that rotation, you're going to impart torque on the string, which is going to show up as a knock left, deviation, impact right with a broadhead or bear shaft, or knock left through paper, or knock left with the bear shaft for a right-handed shooter. You can go through the whole bow and say your arrow is spined out perfectly. Let's say you haven't yoke tuned yet, but you've been moving your rest like crazy, and you have to get your rest so far inside that you're like, this is not right. You can see your arrow pointing at a severe angle. You shouldn't have to do that. So one thing that gets missed with draw length is people will get, especially with sliding draw stops, a lot of these limb stops that bows have today, it's not set in a set hole like a cable stop. You can't just screw it in. So people will mess with that. And just sliding your draw stops a 1/16 of an inch, an 1/8 of an inch, 1/16 of an inch, not a ton, but an 1/8 of an inch on a draw stop is huge. We can be changing your draw length by a full 1/4 of an inch when you're at full draw just by moving those stops a tiny bit. So people get in there, they'll be tuned perfect, and then somebody or they will move their draw stops, either shorten or lengthen them. Well, this affects your tune. It doesn't just shorten up or lengthen your draw length. It does that also, but it changes your valley, it changes the let off of the bow, which we know, but it also changes your true measured draw length, your overall draw length. And when you're getting down into really fine tuning, if anybody's looking at bear shaft tuning, that means you're doing some pretty in-depth tuning, so you're going to notice it in a bear shaft. If you want to see the results and you got a sliding draw stop bow, sit back there, slide those stops back, and have a rip and see if you get a point right impact or knock left tear from doing that. Same thing as putting a mod that's too long for you, a draw length mod. It's going to do the same thing. So on the other end of that, if you slide your stop short, then you're going to have a right tear or a left impact knock right, the bear shaft, because when you're too short on the draw length, if it's too far in front of your face, your shoulders are collapsed together. You're going to impart torque on the string. You're going to get the opposite tear of if you're too long. So a lot of people will kind of look past that and say, oh, it's not a big deal. These little, 1/4 inch of draw length isn't going to change stuff. But if you're the person that's out there trying to get perfect bear shaft flight at 20 yards, same point of impact, plus straight and level, or farther than that, or you're going to be shooting a big fixed blade head or whatever it is, or a fixed blade broadhead past 20 yards, then you should be thinking about this kind of stuff. So changing draw length is a big one, even small, tiny increments like that. So other things that can change your draw length. If you back, you should always tune a bow with the limb bolts. You should set spec, the limb bolts all the way in. Now, if you had them cranked all the way in and you've been shooting and you got a shoulder injury and you have to back them out, let's say, well, backing them out drops your draw weight. If you drop your draw weight, you're going to change the effect of your dynamic spine of your arrow. The arrow's then going to act stiffer, which will give you a right tear if you drop too much draw weight off of your peak weight, if you've matched the arrow to your peak weight. And when you back off your limbs, if you're doing any tiller tuning or just backing them out to shoot, you are also lengthening your draw length. Because the limbs are coming close together, it's going to feed out more string on the back end. So without you even realizing it, just by backing out limb bolts, you can gain an 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch of draw length. Vice versa, if you're somebody that has tuned your bow perfect at, say, 65 pounds, 63, 65 pounds, whatever it is, and it's a 70-pound bow, and you want to shoot at 70, you crank all that up. Well, that's going to do a couple things. It's going to make your arrow act weaker because you now have more power, more weight. So it's going to make your arrow act weaker, which can affect tune. It's also going to slightly shorten your draw length because it's taking up some of that extra string. So there's that too. A lot of people don't think about those little things when they're trying to put together the total package. You have to think of the tuning not as just this step and, okay, well, I fixed that, now it's on to the next step. Everything that you do, changing your draw length, stops, let off, affects the final tuning of your bow, outside of just picking the right spined arrow and changing point weight. One of the other things that we see a lot that can have an effect on your high-low impacts, and your left-right, of course, too, is yoke tuning. So we'll see somebody that gets their bow out, they have it spined perfectly, draw length is matched, everything's all good, bow seems like it's money. And then they get in there and they want to do some fine-tuning for left-right deviation, bare shaft tuning with the yokes, either top yoke or top and bottom yoke. Of course, it has to be a bow with yokes on it. But you get in there, and if I have a left tear, I'm going to twist up on my left yoke. If I'm a right-handed shooter, if you have a right tear, you're going to twist up on the other side. But they'll get in there and yoke tune and then shoot, and all of a sudden your left-right is cleaned up, but now you have a high-low deviation, and people wonder what's going on. Like, what the heck? I already fixed my high-low because my bow was, the cam should be timed and synced. If you're timed and synced and your rest is timed properly, you won't have any high-low deviations, generally speaking. But if you yoke tune, you have to think about what you're doing here. You're actually shortening up one yoke leg to yoke tune. Now, in doing so, you're overall shortening that whole cable, if you think about that. And you're squatting one side of the limb. Well, when you squat the limbs, that will allow the cam to rotate forward, which will advance that cam, which will throw it out of sync from the bottom cam if you've already set sync. Now, it doesn't move it a lot, but it will move it enough to give you a high-low deviation when you're shooting bare shafts or broadheads. Definitely that one gets forgot a lot, or it doesn't get thought about because you don't realize it's actually squatting that. You think it's just turning the limb a little bit. Well, it's actually squatting that top limb or bottom limb if you're yoke tuning it like off a Bowtech system or something like that. So we like to go in and set specs, time sync everything, make sure it's good on the press and drawboard, and then when we get out and start tuning, take care of your high-low first. Take care of your left-right first and get good impact that way. If you're yoke tuning, I'm not talking about shimming a binary cam bow or tuning with your rest, but if you're yoke tuning, and then always remember you're going to have to go back and check your high-low, and you may have to reset that. So, what else? The rest, we still, even with binary cam bows, we like to use the rest as a kind of a last effort to tune, just to clean up real small stuff left or right. Now, it doesn't mean you can't tune with your rest. If you don't have a press, then heck yeah, go ahead and use your rest and move it if you need to. Try to do small, remember, tiny increments, and I'm not going to go into walk back tuning and all that kind of stuff on this one, but these are just some quick reminders about stuff that we're working on. So the other thing that gets overlooked a ton is flex roller guards or movable cable guards, how much they can actually influence your tune, and that they can actually be used to clean up a little bit of tune. Also, if you have a type of bow, say a binary cam bow with a flex guard, or binary cam bow with a cable guard that moves left or right, or swings, that you can tune with, then you can actually use that to tune. So think about how that's going to change your point of impact, or how it's going to change your arrow flight. What that's doing is you are loading the cables, either putting more load on them or taking load off of them. So right-handed shooter, again, if you swing that cable guard out, you're pulling the cables off to the side, which is loading that, putting more tension on the cables, which as you draw, it's going to load that side of the cam, basically causing that cam to lean because of the tension is on that side. Now, if you bring that cable slide in as close as you can to your arrow shaft, and you got to worry about fletching clearance, you're decreasing the load on the cables. So just remember, that's always a tuning option out there. You look at elites, you can tune theirs. New breeds are tunable left, right. You look at primes, because these are all binary cam bows, slaved 2-cam bows that don't have yokes to tune, that you can actually use those to deviate change your tune for left, right, your lateral tune. So don't overlook that for sure. I think those were the big ones. It's just really wanted to touch on some of that stuff again today, kind of get it out there. We've been getting a lot of questions about that lately, and just a lot of confusion about, I thought my bow was tuned, but then I'm not getting clean arrow flight now. And then, I'll ask somebody, well, did you change anything? Well, all I did was change draw length, or, well, yeah, I backed out my limbs a bunch, or, whatever it is. There's always something, and people are not really getting that you do one little thing, it's going to affect the overall tune of your bow. So, and then you do a bunch of things together, then it's really going to affect it, man. Like, yeah, I slid my stops, I backed my I slid my stops in, shortened my draw length, I backed my limbs down, I turned in my cable guard, and I tried to shim the bow. Well, you shim the cam in the wrong way, plus you did all this, you shortened draw length, everything adds up, and bam, all of a sudden you can't get good bear shaft flight. So, yeah, I think that's it. Just quick ones: left tear or knock left, point right impact. You twist up on your left yokes, or you move your rest to the inside of the riser. This is all for a right-handed shooter. It'll be opposite for lefties. You move your rest inside, or you put more tension, or swing your cable rod in, and then you shim your cam. If you have a knock left, you move your cam to the left. That's pulling your whole shooting string left. That means you'll put fatter shims on the right. If you have a knock right, you're going to bump your rest outside. So outside of the riser, going towards the side of the shelf. You're going to twist up on the right cable, or you're going to move the cam to the right. High-low deviations, you got a knock high, you can throw a twist in the top cam, knock low, throw a twist in the bottom, or you can leave the cam synced and slightly slide your draw stops either way to get the same effect, to clean up knock high or knock low, or you're going to move your rest opposite also to clean up your high-low. You can just do it with tiny bumps of the rest to clean all that up too. I think that's about it. I just want to clear some of that up today. Also wanted to say that we did get the online store up and running. It's pretty cool. We got some cool hats up there right now and some patches. Looking at working on some t-shirts still. I got some designs in and going to get a couple in here. Hopefully, it looks like probably in the next couple weeks, and see how they turned out. And if we're happy with them, we'll offer those up. So if you want to rock any DNA gear, we'd really appreciate it and show some support. You guys, everybody out there has been supporting us like crazy, and it's awesome to see, and we hope we can keep bringing you this kind of stuff and support all you listeners out there too, with tuning knowledge and helping you guys get set up and shooting better and just enjoying the sport of archery. So also on the website, we added a couple, we have some affiliates, some partners, Ultimate Predator Gear, and then Off Grid Food Company. So Off Grid, they make beef jerky, awesome fuel bars, and breakfasts for backcountry, backpacking, hunting, whatever it is. Go through our site right now. You get 10% off through the month of April. Pretty awesome. It's good to stock up now, even for season. Go to dirtynortharchery.com and just click on our affiliates and go through, and it'll link up and order through them. So Ultimate Predator Gear, they make probably the coolest bow-mounted decoys that are on the market. You actually shoot through the decoy. Look them up. They're right in Colorado Springs, Colorado here. All kinds of decoys. They have elk, deer, turkeys, hogs. It's turkey season, so get your order in now. You can still get it. For turkey season, they also make other decoys, goose decoys. They make a camera, an action camera, HD, that records in 4K. The thing is wicked. And they also have like a battery pack. That's all I use in the backcountry, 20 mega ohms or whatever, 20,000. Get like 6 or 7 charges off my phone. It's got a light built in. Check them out all through our website at dirtynortharchery.com, and click on them if you're looking for any of that stuff. Click through our website and get some cool stuff. So as always, we'd love to hear from you guys. Get pictures in. We love to share our customers' pictures too on our social media, and show off what you guys and gals are up to out there. Also, man, we love it. So just remember, keep enjoying the sport of archery and help somebody else out anytime you can. And thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Dirty North Archery Podcast. If you enjoyed this or any other episodes, be sure to subscribe or share with your friends. You can find all our episodes on alphabowhunting.com under the Dirty North Archery tab or on Podbean.
And make sure you go over to Facebook, Instagram, or dirtynortharchery.com to see the latest from Dirty North Archery or get in contact with us. As always, we'd love to hear from you with any questions or comments or ideas for upcoming shows.